What's going on, y'all? I am finally getting around to doing this video that I wanted to do since pretty much the beginning. So let's get into it. Hey guys, so for the longest time, I said the land will tell you how it wants to be built. I kept saying, okay, I'm going to eventually do a video on that to explain what I'm talking about. Hopefully, this is that video. This is like the 20th time I've done it because my brain keeps going blank halfway through. So let's see if this is the final time. Sure, a lot of you guys understand what I mean by the land will tell you what it wants or how it wants to be built. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, let me try to explain it in a way that makes sense. Anybody who is a true homesteader, who works the land for survival, for longevity, anybody who is buying land for the sole purpose of being able to have something that you could pass down to your children and so on and so on, I believe that you take on the responsibility as soon as you purchase that piece of property to become a steward of that land. I think it's your responsibility to maintain the health, the beauty, the ecosystem that was there. The land has been there for millennia before you were even thought of. It'll be there a millennia after you've been long forgotten. So I'm not a big fan. I mean, I know a lot of you guys do it. That's fine. That's your thing. It's just not my thing. You can come in with thousands and thousands of dollars and machinery and do all this stuff and just completely rape the land and just try to throw down what you want. Like, okay, I want this here, I want this here, I want this here, and you've never actually took the time to study the land or know how it moves. So I come across a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys do too, to where every year they have the same problem, whether it's weather related. Okay, the yard floods here, this happens here, this happens here. And it causes you to spend time and money to keep fighting that problem, or the solution would be to permanently change the nature, you know what I mean, the actual land to suit your needs instead of the other way around, So like I said, if you do that, that's cool. That's just not my thing. I'm trying to work with the land. That way when I do pass it down, everything still flows together. I don't want to pass down issues to my children, to my grandchildren, and so on things that I could have done if I would just took the time, just a little bit of time and studied the land. You should know your land just as well as God knows your land. Not only from a strategical aspect, that way you know where everything's at, but just from a harmonious standpoint, you know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. Let me explain what I did when I got this property. So, for those of you who don't know, 2016 we bought this land. 3 acres, completely raw land. It had a driveway on it. That was it. There was, literally never in the history of ever has anything been done to this land. Just pure wild, raw land. And it took 4 years to clean it to pretty much get to where I am now. And, a majority of that was because it was all done by hand, so it was extremely slow. I could have spent a shit ton of money and brought in tractors and, done all this stuff and cleared it as I needed to, but I'm broke and I wanted to see if I could do it. So, but that's neither here nor there. But I spent the first year and a half, 2 years at least, nothing but walking every inch of this land, studying where the slopes are, where the flat spots are, what grass grows here, what weeds grow here, where's the poison ivy, where's the sticker bushes, where are the rock veins, what rocks stick up that that will tear up a lawnmower blade, what rocks are fine that I can walk over, you know, all these little things. Where are the trees at? What kind of trees? Do we have too many of a certain kind of tree? Are there so many trees here that it's killing the forest itself? You know, all these little things came into play on me deciding where I wanted to put everything. All my structures, like the greenhouse here, this is the 5th version of the greenhouse in the 4th spot. You know, it started 500 foot that way, and it slowly progressed this way and ended up where it's at now. And it was, you know, because as you clear more land, better spots become available, things like that. So I've never built anything permanent the first time. And I haven't. You know, the outhouse has been in 10 different spots. The house has been in 3 different spots. You know, just all these different things to try to dial it in. I know it's driving my wife crazy because she's like, why do you build something to tear it down? I was like, I want to know if it's going to work there before I spend the time and the money to actually put something there, just to find out a couple months later there's going to be an issue with the weather or something like that, to where it's a constant problem that I've got to do constant upkeep and maintenance because I was in too much of a rush to be like, okay, it does this here, let me find a better spot, you know, let me find better light exposure, all these different things. So we had a system set up that even to this day we still use, to where I would go in and I would just, you know, I wouldn't be excited, I wouldn't be upset, I would just be, you know, flatline, just base, just here, present. And I would just go out and I would listen. I'd walk about 50 foot and I'd stop and I'd look at everything. I'd look at every tree, every branch, you know, because angles, things look different. Some things look better from this angle, some things look worse from this angle, you know. I'd looked at everything, you know, the way the trees bent, the way the ground was shaped, you know, are there roots here, you know, all these different things. Just I'd walk 50 foot and I'd stop. Not a long time, maybe, you know, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and just stop and just listen, you know. Just take in the sounds, you know. What animals do you hear? What birds are there? Do you hear the traffic? Do you hear the neighbors? You know, just take in everything from that spot and slowly progress to the next spot and do the same thing. Take everything in. You don't have to memorize every single thing on your property. You know, it takes years to get to that point. But you want to focus on the things that grab your eye. Like for me, right now, you know, I've got this giant oak right here. Then I've got a dead tree that's probably 30 foot tall. Then I've got a tree that slants, you know. So all the other ones are like this. This tree slants like this. You know, things like that grab my attention. I'm like, okay, that stands out. That's different. I like the difference of it. You know what I mean? It's not all uniform, and you know, it's got character. So find those things that have character, and then give them a name. You know, we've got a tree up front that it's perfect like this, side by side. It's 2 trees, side by side, maybe 2 foot apart. But about 20 foot up, they both kick and do this on opposite sides. It's perfect, you know what I mean? So in the wintertime, when we noticed this tree, it from the angle we were standing at, it looked like a goat's head. You ever seen the, you know, the pagan symbol with the goat head? It looked exactly like that shape. It comes up, you know, it's the form of it. That's the first thing that popped into our minds. So from that, we were like, oh, you know, the devil tree, and then we were like Lucifer, and then Lucy. So now, if I tell the boy, like, hey, I left the shovel up by Lucy, he knows exactly which set of trees to go to look for that thing. He's not, what are you talking about? You know, and then we had a giant oak tree that was 100% dead, but it was shriveled and, you know, hardwood, and you could, you know, it was just a creepy looking tree. So we called it the Halloween tree. You know, and even though that tree's been gone for almost 3 years now, I can say, hey, we're doing this over by the Halloween tree, meet me over there. He knows exactly where I'm talking about and where to go, you know. Things like that. Map out your property. Have little identifiers, you know, things that grab your attention. That way you can have those reference points. It makes life a lot easier, and it's, especially if you're like with me, I can't do just one project constantly. It drives me crazy. I lose my mind. Like the first couple years, it was literally 16, 17, 18-hour days. I would literally wake up, smoke 2 cigarettes, put the dogs out, and go straight to work. And then I wouldn't come back in until I was too tired to move or it was too dark to see. You know, I was just spending time out there. Just, you don't have to do anything. Just grab a chair, just go out into your yard. Even if you're in town, you're in the city, if you've got any kind of yard, go out there, sit in it, take it in. You know what I mean? If you've got 100 acres, if you've got 1,000 acres, there's no excuse. Know your land. You know what I mean? Like I said, you don't do it overnight. It's years-long process because you've got to know the seasons. What it does in June is not going to be the exact same thing that it does in December. You know, your sun's going to be in a different place, which means your light exposure, if you've got a greenhouse or a garden, is going to be different. So if you build in full sun, or you tear up a piece of land in summertime during garden season just because you want to get that full sun, that doesn't mean in the wintertime you're going to get that same sun exposure. You know what I mean? Because the sun moves. You know, little things like that that a lot of people overlook and don't think about. They're like, oh, this is a good spot, let me put my garden here. It's going to give you problems if you just jump in and try to make the land fit your needs instead of you trying to work with it. Make sense? I know I feel like I'm rambling and saying the same thing over and over. And you don't want to come in and just completely destroy the environment that's there. Like I made a field up front after years of figuring out if that's the best place for it and how to not destroy the land along with the process, you know. And I've pretty much, for every tree that I cut down, I allow 3 to grow back in its place. Not in the exact same spot, a different part of the property, but I replace every tree that I fell by at least double, if not triple. Triple's the goal, but you know, at least for every, you know, 1 tree that's dropped, 2 trees go in, but more than not, it's 3 trees. So I left just as much space wild that I cleared, you know, if that makes sense. Even in the clear spots. For those of you who watch my videos, you see I showed the video of the island right here with the deadfall wall around it, and then I've got the wild natural island over here that's got the rocks around it in the backyard. And the reason I chose those was because I didn't want to come in and completely destroy the ecosystem. For the spots that I had to clear out and chase out the, you know, the wildlife, the insects and all that stuff, I still gave them a refuge to that side as much as I possibly could. So for however much I took down, I made sure to secure that exact same amount in a different spot that will never get touched. That way, I'll never be more than 50% clear. It's perfectly even. I only take what I need. I don't want to come in and just destroy everything. I don't want to do that. So I've got the islands, and I will get around to doing videos about those. But I'm back at the greenhouse now, so watch for that video coming soon. It's looking nice. But the natural islands, like I said, that one's rocks. This one is deadfall and trees that, you know, branches from the trees that we've felled over the last couple years. But I'm leaving these 100% natural. I'm going to go in and get rid of the, you know, the nuisance plants, the poison ivy and stuff like that. Not all of it, some of it, because I want to bring in my own different plants that help support the life that I want to bring in. You know, the different insects breed and live in different kind of you know, plants and greenery and things. Like if you want butterflies, you can build butterfly houses and do all that. But if you don't have the flowers and the things like that to attract them, to keep them there, then those things are pointless. So you've got to look at it, okay, I want to bring in butterflies. So the first thing I did was I looked at what are the butterflies of Missouri, because that's where I'm at. You know, I didn't want to bring in an out of state species or anything. I wanted to keep what was here here. I just wanted to amplify the amount to make up for, you know, what I've lost. So okay, I'm like, I can build butterfly boxes, but as of right now, it would be pointless because I don't have the flowers and the things like that to attract them to bring them in. So when I looked at the butterflies of Missouri, I looked at the pictures of them. All butterflies pretty much do the same thing. They're pollinators, and they're, you know, they're just pretty to look at. They're the aesthetic for the yard. So I'm looking at pictures of these butterflies, the sizes, the colors, you know, just all this stuff, even moths, you know. Which ones do I find appealing? I'm like, okay, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one. I'm like, oh, that's kind of you know. And then I looked up each one of those. Okay, what does it take to bring in this butterfly? How do I get this butterfly to come here? So I studied the plants that it would need to be attracted to. You know, some butterflies, or you know, some animals want a flat flower. Some animals want a bell flower facing up. Some animals want insects want a bell flower facing down. You know, all these different things actually play a huge part in the, you know, how everything flows. Some like monarch butterflies, I read that they will only lay their eggs on milkweed plants, and I've only seen like 4 or 5 milkweed plants on my property. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to bring in monarchs, so I need to go out and get a whole bunch of milkweed to put over here in these natural islands. That way I've got that attractant for those critters. You know, I want lightning bugs, because, you know, the aesthetic, you know, think long term. Once my yard's done, for those of you guys who have seen my mowing video, you see how big my backyard is over here. Now imagine that perfectly mowed, landscaped, pretty, and a beautiful, you know, June day, July day. It's not stupid hot. It's, you know, mid 70s, just perfect, just nice. Sun's going down, everybody's chilling, and there's literally a million lightning bugs everywhere lighting up the entire backyard. That popped into my head. I was like, okay, how do I do that? So I started looking up what attracts lightning bugs. Went down that rabbit hole. It's like, okay, lightning bugs need this kind of grass to breed and to hibernate over the winter and all this other stuff. So I'm like, okay, I went through and I started looking for these kinds of grasses. It's like, all right, which ones are native to Missouri? All these, you know, keep it local. Keep it local. So after digging and everything, okay, lightning bugs like, you know, tall, wispy, you know, grass, that way they can get down in there in the middle, you know, and just do their thing. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have any of that here, so what do I need to bring in? So I started looking at pampas grass, fire grass, you know, all these different things that I could bring in and put there to attract the insects that I want, and so on and so on. You know, whether it be, I know a lot of people freak out about ants. I love ants. So, you know, just all these different things. What brings in the ladybugs? What brings in the praying mantises? You know, what keeps this snake away? What brings this snake in? You know, all these different things. I'm trying to keep it as natural as possible. I want the nuisance issues to be handled by the nature around it, if that makes sense. Like, I let praying mantises go in my garden. I catch ladybugs, I put them in the garden, in the greenhouse, because they won't tear up my plants, and they take care of the nuisance problems. That way I don't have to use chemicals and all this stuff. Now, if they get to the point to where so many generations of this kind of insect is bred in this area, and they've got this constant food supply because it's, you know, a cycle, then I know 100 years from now, as long as nobody comes in here and destroys everything, that cycle should still be going perfectly. You want to find a way to make the land, you want to set up that cycle. You want it to all be self-sustaining, low maintenance, so even 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, as long as nothing, you know, drastic happens, that cycle can continue to go even without you there. You know what I mean? Like, we've got such a big yard that I don't want it to be I don't want it to be trim and proper and all that stuff all the time. So I'm looking into a way to make it to where if I let the grass get a little bit long, I don't want it to get, about 2 foot. If you've ever seen a perfect field that's roughly like a wheat field, if you've ever seen a wheat field that's perfectly, 2 foot, 3 foot tall, and it's just flat and even and everything just kind of works with itself. I like that more than I like a nice manicured yard. But on the other hand, with that kind of grass that will give me that uniformity and that structure that I want, not only do I provide an ecosystem within that grass, I provide an aesthetic for myself. And if I need to, whenever we have company or we're going to do a party or whatever, I can go in and I can mow that grass and bring it down to the level that I want for that manicured look. And I know it's not going to affect anything, because in a week it'll be caught back up and everything will be sustained. So even if I want to go a month without mowing, I know it's not going to get ridiculous. It's just going to only improve aesthetically. That way I don't feel like, oh, this shit yard, I got to get out here and mow it again because it looks like crap. I know a lot of you guys have that feeling. You're like, oh, the freaking yard's 6 inches tall, it looks like shit now. I want to avoid that, and I want to have that uniformity. I don't mind the height, but I want it to be consistent. That uniform. Little things like that. I know a lot of you guys, like I said, probably have the unless you've bought raw land, then you bought something that was already there and established. You've already got a house, you've already got barns or sheds or pastures and all this stuff fenced off. And I bet a lot of you guys probably come across problems to where, like, damn, if this garage was like 5 foot this way, then we wouldn't have this issue. Little things like that that you don't really think of or pay attention to until you actually have to deal with that problem. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You got to think ahead into the future. Is this going to cause an issue? Is this going to be is this going to flow? All this stuff. I hope I'm making sense, guys. Know your land. No matter how big or how small it is, know your land. Even if you never intend on touching certain spots, know that land. That's the biggest thing for me when it comes to talking to new landowners. Just take the time to know your land. Don't rush into it. If you're truly going to be there forever and you want to pass it down, take the time to do it right. There's no rush. Yeah, pace yourself too when you're doing this, because you can mess yourself up without even knowing it really easy just by working the land. It'll whoop your ass, man. So, whether the 1,000 acres to a 1/4 acre lot in the middle of a city, know your land, every single inch of it. It's, if you plan on keeping it. If you're renting, you know what I mean, spend some time just for a strategical kind of thing and just to know what's out there, because you could still make use of what you got. But definitely, if you're buying land, then please take your time, know your land. Don't just jump out there with a whole bunch of money and rape the land and destroy everything. I'm trying to have it set up to where when I'm 60 or 70, too old and broken to get out and do things like I used to, if I neglect a certain area, I know it's not going to affect me. I don't have to rush to maintain certain things because I've got that cycle, healthy and going. So that's the goal for here. I hope I explained that with some kind of sense. Thank you for watching, everybody in the premiere. Thank you, everybody who's going to watch the rerun. Thank you. I appreciate every one of y'all. It's like I said, it's humbling that you guys would waste the time on me. I appreciate it. I hope I taught you something, or at least entertained you for a couple minutes. But yeah, please take land ownership seriously. It is a huge investment, and it's an obligation that literally affects everything around you, and could literally affect the future by your commitment level or your lack of. So, all right, guys, take care. I will see you soonish.